if you'll remember, we looked at taking a fraction like 2/3 and creating equivalent fractions by multiplying by 1, but disguising 1 as 2/2, 3/3, 4/4, and so 2/3 times 1 is 4/6. So 2/3 is equal to 4/6. I can take 2/3 and multiply it by 3/3, because 3/3 is 1, and 2 times 3 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9. So 2/3 is the same as 4/6, which is the same as 6/9. And I can take 2/3 and multiply it by 4/4. 4/4 is 1. 2 times 4 is 8. 3 times 4 is 12. Okay? So hopefully you remember that we talked about taking any base fraction, converting it into an equivalent fraction by multiplying it by 1, but disguising one as a fraction, like 2/2, 3/3, 4/4, etc. Okay, so hopefully y'all remember that. The reason that is so important is because let's say that I wanted to take 1/4 and add it to 1/3. Okay. Remember me talking about tying the picture to the arithmetic. I want to take 1/4 and add 1/3 to it. If I kind of put these together, I can see that it forms part of a whole circle. So let me put the whole circle down. Okay. And so I want to know what portion of the whole circle is 1/4 and 1/3 when we put it together. Well, it's not 2/7. We can't do that. It's not 2/7. If I were to get some fraction pieces that were sevenths and put it on top of this, it would not be the same size. The shape would not be the same. So I've got to find some way of taking 1/4 and 1/3 and being able to put it together and calling it one thing, one fraction, not two separate pieces. Well, we know that 1/4 can be divided up into eighths. If I come over here and we do 1/4 and multiply the top and bottom by 2/2, we get 2/8. And so I could take 1/4 and break it up into 2/8. But my problem is the 1/3 cannot be divided into eighths. If I put some eighths down here, and try to cover up those eighths, you can see that there's some blue still showing. And that's because I can't take 1/3 and divide it into eighths. It won't work. But if I take 1/4 and divide it into 12ths, and we're talking about 12ths of the whole circle, then I need 3/12 to make up a fourth, and I can divide 1/3 into twelfths because it is 4/12. All right, so if I take 1/4 and I want to turn it into twelfths, what do I multiply the top and bottom by? Good. Yes, waiting for somebody. So top and bottom by 3, which is just disguising 1 as a different format. And so if I multiply 1/4 times 3/3, I get 3/12. And there we are. 3/12 makes up 1/4. Okay. If I take 1/3 and I want to change it into twelfths, what would I multiply the top and bottom by? Right. Okay. 4 over, let me write that a little bit better than that. 4/4. 4/4 is 1. And so I'm taking 1/3 and multiplying it by 1. I've just disguised 1 as 4/4. 1 times 4 is 4. 3 times 4 is 12. So I've changed 1/4 into twelfths and 1/3 into twelfths. I was mentioning earlier that I cannot turn 1/3 into eighths, because if I wrote down 1/3 and I want to change that into eighths, there isn't anything I can multiply 3 by to get 8. Not anything that's a whole number. I could do fractional stuff, but that's not going to work. So you see why I couldn't use eighths, because I can't turn 1/3 into eighths. So you can see by arithmetic, I can't turn 1/3 into eighths. And you saw visually that I couldn't turn 1/3 into eighths, because 3/8 ends up being bigger and more than 1/3. But I could change the 1/3 into twelfths. So now, if I'm adding 1/4 and 1/3, what I really have is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 twelfths. So 1/4 plus 1/3 is 3/12, where we changed 1/4 into 3/12, plus 1/3 is 4/12. Now that the denominators are the same, we keep the same denominator and we add the numerators. 1/4 plus 1/3 is 7/12. 1/4 plus 1/3 is equal to 7/12. So I'm wanting you to see visually why you do what you do. The reason we have to have a common denominator is because we have to break the pieces up into smaller pieces so that we can put all those smaller pieces together to be the same as the amount of our original two fractional pieces. Let's look at another example. Okay, let's say I want to add 1/2 and 1/3. Okay, I want to add, let me turn this over. I want to add 1/2 plus 1/3. Okay, well, right now I can't come up with a name for that. It's not 2/5. We don't just add the tops and add the bottoms. That doesn't work. Because if I were to break this into fifths, 2 of them would not be this whole big piece. So I have to find something else to break them up into. Well, that's where the common denominator comes in. Okay, I can take 1/2 and I can break 1/2 into sixths. Okay, 1/2 turned into sixths. We multiply the top and bottom by 3. 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. 3/6 is exactly the same thing as 1/2. So I'm going to pull that off now because we rewrote 1/2 as 3/6. 1/3 can be divided into sixths. Okay. 1/3 turned into sixths. We multiply the top and bottom by 2. 1 times 2 is 2. 3 times 2 is 6. 1/3 is exactly the same as 2/6. So this put together, added together, becomes that shape right there. Okay, do you see that those are exactly the same amount? So now we have a way of writing this so that it makes sense. So we had 1/2 we turned into 3/6. 1/3 we turned into 2/6. Denominators are the same. Add the numerators, and we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sixths. Okay. So what we're going to do now is take that sheet and we're going to start looking at those problems. And basically today we are trying to find the denominators. Okay, that's the main focus of today. Let me clear these off. And if you want to kind of work ahead a little bit on that sheet, that's fine. But I'm going to go through each one. And so the first one, we have 1/3 and we have 2/5. Okay, 1/3 and 2/5. So that's what the first two columns are. The third column wants the multiples. So we need to look at what are the multiples of 3. Well, 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 6 is 18. So those are the multiples of 3. The multiples of 5 are 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 3 is 15. 15 is a multiple of both 3 and 5. 3 goes into 15, 5 goes into 15. So it asks us to circle the least common denominator. That means that 15 is the smallest number that 3 and 5 will go into. It's not the only number. 3 and 5 go into 30. 3 and 5 go into 60. But 15 is the smallest number that 3 and 5 will go into. So they want us to now take 1/3 and turn it into 15ths. So if we change 1/3 into 15ths, what do we multiply the top and bottom by to get 15ths? Careful, Mr. Roberts. 3 is what we get here. That's what I'm looking for. We would multiply the top and bottom by 5. And I'm sorry, that's not 3. In order to get 15, we have to multiply the top and bottom by 5, so we get 5 15ths. 5 15ths reduces to 1/3. We took 1/3 and multiplied the top and bottom by 5 to turn it into 15. Let's look at 2/5. We need to change it into 15ths. So for this one, we multiply the top and bottom by how much? We want to turn 5 into 15. So what am I going to multiply that by? Correct. I'm going to multiply by 3. Okay, multiply by 3. 5 times 3 is 15. 2 times 3 is 6. Okay. We're not going to do the last column right now. Right now, I want us to look at what do we turn those fractions into. So 1/3 became 5 15ths, and 2/5 became 6 15ths. Okay, let's go to the next one. The second problem, we have 4/6 and 2/9. We're looking for the number that both 6 and 9 will go into, the smallest number. I could multiply 6 times 9 and get 54, and that be a common denominator, but it's not the least common denominator. Okay, and the reason that we want to try to focus on finding the least common denominator is because then it's going to shorten the amount of work that you have to do. If you just take the denominators and multiply them together to get a common denominator, you're going to have to reduce at the end. But if you use the least common denominator, you probably won't have to reduce at the end. That saves you time. So we need to take 6 and find its multiples. The multiples of 6 are 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 3 is 18. 6 times 4 is 24. Then we're going to take 9. 9 times 1 is 9. 9 times 2 is 18. So you're right, Miss Hudson. We can stop right there because I can see that 18 is my least common denominator. So I have to change 4/6 into 18ths. I have to change 2/9 into 18ths before I could add or subtract those two fractions together. So if I'm going to multiply, if I'm going to turn 4/6 into 18ths, what I'm going to ask you now is, what is the numerator? Think about what we're going to multiply 6 by to get 18. We have to multiply the same thing. That's what we're multiplying by, yes. But my question now is, what is this number up here? What is that number going to be? Anybody else? Okay. And that's correct, because we're going to multiply the bottom by 3. We have to do the same thing on the top. Whatever you do to the bottom of a fraction, you have to do the same thing on the top, because that means you're multiplying by 1. We're just disguising 1 as a different format. Okay. So 4 times 3 is 12. If I'm going to turn 2/9 into 18ths, what is this number up here on the top? Okay, good, because we're multiplying the top and bottom by 2, because 9 times 2 is 18, 2 times 2 is 4. So 4/6 is turned into 12/18. 2/9 is turned into 4/18. Now we could add or subtract those two fractions. All right, let's look at the next one. We have 8/9 and 2/3. If we start with 9, the multiples of 9 are 9 times 1 is 9, 9 times 2 is 18, 9 times 3 is 27, 9 times 4 is 36. If we go to 3, the multiples of 3 are 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9. I can stop right there because now I have something in common. So the smallest number that 9 and 3 will go into is 9. Sometimes the least common denominator is one of the denominators. Here it wasn't. On the first one, 1/3 and 2/5, it wasn't one of the denominators. But here, the common denominator is 9. So 8/9 doesn't need to be changed because it is already in ninths. But we have to change 2/3 into ninths. How many ninths is 2/3? How many ninths ninths is 2/3? This number up here on the top. How many ninths is 2/3? Careful. Very careful. 3 is what I have to multiply the top and bottom by. So this is not 3. Nope, not 9 ninths. 6 ninths. There we go. Because I had to multiply the bottom by 3 to get 9. I have to multiply the top by 3. And 2 times 3 is 6. So 2/3 is the same as 6 ninths. Because we multiply the top and bottom by 3. All right, let's look at the next one. The next one we have 4/5 and 7/10. 4/5 and 7/10. Okay. What is the smallest number that 5 and 10 will go into? All right, Ms. Carter says 10. Ms. Hudson says 10. Mr. Roberts says 10. Ms. Whitaker says 10. Absolutely. Because 5 times 2 is 10. So I don't need to do anything to 7/10. But I do need to change 4/5 into tenths. So careful. 4/5 is how many tenths? All right, Mr. Roberts says 8. Okay, careful, Ms. Carter. You're telling me what I have to multiply the top and bottom by. There we go. If I multiply the top and bottom by 2, I get 8/10. So now I have 4/5, which is exactly the same thing as 8/10. And I have 7/10. I could now add or subtract those. Okay. Let's see. 4/5. All right. Next we have 4/6 and 3/4. So my first question to you is, what is the least common denominator? So look at that. What's the smallest number that 6 and 4 will go into? Ms. Carter says 12. Ms. Whitaker says 12. Ms. Hudson says 12. Okay, that's exactly correct, because 6 times 2 is 12, 4 times 3 is 12. So the least common denominator is 12. All right, now I want you to change 4/6 into 12ths. Tell me what the new fraction will be. What is the new fraction? Mr. Roberts says 8/12. Another 8/12. Another 8/12. And 8/12 is correct, because I'm going to multiply the top and bottom by 2. 6 times 2 is 12. 4 times 2 is 8. And then 3/4 into 12ths. Tell me what the new fraction will be. The new fraction. Changing 3/4 into 12ths. So we have a 9/12. Another 9/12. So we've got 2 people saying 9/12. Okay. And that is correct. We would multiply the top and bottom by 3 because 4 times 3 is 12. And now 3 times 3 is 9. Careful, not 17. Oh, 7, yes, if we were adding those. Correct, Ms. Whitaker. If we were adding those 2 fractions, then we would have 17/12. Absolutely right. All right, I want to skip down to the one that says 2/4 and 5/10. 2/4 and 5/10. I want to know what is the least common denominator. Okay, I've got 20 as a possibility. There's another 20. Okay, correct. 20. 20 is the smallest number that 2/4 or that 4 and 10 will go into. Okay, so now we have to change 2/4 into 20ths, and we have to change 5/10 into 20ths. So I want you to tell me what the 2 new fractions are. What are the 2 new fractions? Okay, I want both fractions. What are the 2 new fractions? Okay, give me 1 second. I'm sorry, I'm checking something here. I'm getting something ready to send to you. Okay, let's see. All right, we've got 10/20ths and 10/20ths. Okay, so in order to change 2/4 into 20ths, we have to multiply the top and bottom by 5. And so 4 times 5 is 20, 2 times 5 is 10. And then to change tenths into 20ths, we have to multiply by 2 on the top and bottom. 5 times 2 is 10. So correct, we would get 10/20ths for each fraction. Okay? All right, I'm going to send you, I'm hitting send now. And you should have gotten a sheet that's just a study guide for finding common denominator, least common denominator, and then you should have gotten a sheet. Okay, I want you to remember back last week when we started talking about fractions. And we talked about taking a fraction like 1/2. Trying to get that to be a little bit clearer. 1/2, and we said that if we wanted to change that fraction into fourths, we could change it into fourths, and we would get 2/4. 1/2 is the same as 2/4. We said that we could split that up, take that 1/2, and instead of splitting it into 2 pieces, we could split it into 3 pieces. And each one of those pieces would be a 1/6 of the whole circle. 3/6 is the same as 1/2. So 2/4, 3/6, and 1/2 are all the same thing. And what we did, because we can't always look at diagrams of stuff, we took 1/2, and in order to turn that into fourths, we had to multiply 1/2 by something. And what we multiplied it by was 1. But we disguised the 1 as 2/2. And we said that we could then multiply the bottoms, multiply the tops. And so 1/2 is exactly the same thing as 2/4. If we take 1/2 and multiply the top and bottom by 3/3, 3/3 is 1. We haven't changed anything. We're still multiplying by 1. We're just disguising 1 as something else. And so I multiply the tops, I multiply the bottoms, and I get 3/6. 1/2 is the same as 2/4. Pull this down a little bit so you can see. So 1/2 is the same as 2/4, which is the same as 3/6. Okay? Now let me ask you this question. What if I wanted to change 1/2 into fifths? Is there a whole number that I can multiply 2 by and turn it into 5? A whole number. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is there a whole number that we can multiply 2 by to get 5? Correct. There isn't. We can't turn 1/2 into fifths right now. We'll find out way later on that you can, but you have to do something completely different. So for right now, the answer is no. We can't change 1/2 into fifths. Could I change 1/2 into twelfths? Is it possible to change 1/2 into twelfths? So what I'm asking is there something I can multiply 2 by to turn it into 12? Yes. Ladies, what do you think? All right, then what is that number that I would multiply the top and bottom by? Very good, exactly right. I would multiply the top and bottom by 6. 6 over 6 is still 1, and we end up with 6 twelfths. And I want you to see that if I take twelfths and I lay them on top, there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1/2 is the same as 6 twelfths. Okay, it's important that you see how the pictures and the numbers work together, that you see why we do what we do, because we can't keep having these pictures in front of us. For one thing, we would have to, with some of the numbers, we'd have to have slices so small we wouldn't even be able to see them. If I wanted this 1/2, if I wanted to take a whole circle and cut it into 50ths and have 50 50ths, I'd have to have 50 little teeny tiny itsy bitsy slices. They'd be so small I wouldn't be able to see them. So we've got to be able to move from looking at the picture to being able to do it with arithmetic. Okay, so the reason this is going to be important is because, let me pull these out of the way. You'll be asked to do something like this. I want to add those together. I want to take 1/2 and I want to add 1/3 to it. Okay, well, I need to know how much of the original circle that is. So the only way to do that is to take the whole circle and divide it into pieces that would fit on top of that. Those pieces would be sixths, because 3/6 is a half, and 2/6 is a third. So if we take 1/2 and rewrite it as 6ths, just like we did right here, we get 3/6. If I want to take 1/3 and change it into 6ths, 1/3 equals something 6ths, I would have to multiply the top and bottom by 2, which is 1/1, and I get 2/6. So in order to be able to add those fractions, we've got to get the pieces the same that fit over the top of both fractional pieces. We have to have something that will fit over the top of a half and something that'll fit over the top of a third. And what fits over the top is 6ths. If I had eighths, well, I do know that 4/8 is a half, right? I can take 1/2 and turn it into fourths by multiplying the top and bottom, into eighths. We can take 1/2 and turn it into eighths by multiplying the top and bottom by 4, and we get 4/8. 1, 2, 3, 4. But can I turn 1/3 into fourths? Is it possible to turn 1/3 into into eighths? I keep saying fourths. Is it possible we can turn 1/2 into eighths, but is it possible to turn 1/3 into eighths? No. Good. That's right. If I tried, here are 3/8. If I put the 1/3 piece over the top of them, you can see that there's a sliver of the blue left over. Okay? It's not completely covering up the 3/8. So there's no way to turn 1/3 into eighths. All right? So it's important to be able to see the visual of this and see what's going on with the picture. So what I'm going to do now is take the pictures away, and we're going to look at just the numbers. Okay? And for that, I'm going to send something to you. Okay, I just hit send, and you're going to get something that looks sort of like, mine's cut in half, but yours won't be. Okay, so you should have gotten something that looks like this. So we're going to do the same thing that we were doing, but we are going to do it without pictures. So our first problem, they want us to take 1/3 and 2/5 and find a common denominator. Actually, we want the least common denominator. And so the way we do that, you'll get better at this, but the way we're going to start off doing it is we're going to take the number 3, the first denominator, and we're going to come up with all of the multiples of 3. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 5, 15. Okay, and I want you doing this along with me on your sheet. Then if we take 5 and do the multiples of 5, 5 times 1 is 5, 5 times 2 is 10, 5 times 3 is 15, 5 times 4 is 20. Well, we could have stopped at 15 because 15 is the least common denominator. Okay, Ashley, I sent you a sheet and it should look like this, and we are going through the first problem on the sheet. So we're taking 1/3 and 2/5. We're taking the denominator 3 and we are finding the multiples. Then we took the denominator 5 and found the multiples, and we see that the common denominator is 15, the least common denominator. So I've got to change 1/3 into 15ths. What would I have to multiply the top and the bottom of 1/3 by in order to get 15ths? Careful. 3 times 3 is 9. What am I going to multiply 3 by to get 15? Correct. It's 5. If I multiply the bottom by 5, I'll write it over here on this side because it doesn't matter. Excuse me. And I multiply the top by 5. Then 5 times 1 is 5, and 5 times 3 is 15. 1/3 is exactly the same fraction as 5/15. If I had that fractional piece sitting out here that was 1/3, and I divided that into smaller pieces, it would be 5/15. Then we have to do the same thing with 2/5. The denominator is going to be 15. So what would I multiply the top and bottom by to get 15? Correct. 3. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 5 is 15. So we changed 1/3 into 15ths, and we changed 2/5 into 15ths. 1/3 is 5/15. 2/5 is 6/15. All right, let's go to the next one. We've got 4/6, and we're not going to do that last column that you have on your page, adding and subtracting them, because we're going to do that next week. Right now, we're just looking at converting the fractions into equivalent fractions, getting that least common denominator. So this new problem, 4/6, 2/9. The factors of 6 are 6 times 1 is 6, 6 times 2 is 12, 6 times 3 is 18, 6 times 4 is 24, 6 times 5 is 30. The factors of 9, 9 times 1 is 9, 9 times 2 is 18, and we can stop right there. As soon as we get something that matches, we can stop. So I'm going to change 4/6 into 18ths. We're going to change 4/6 into 18. So I need to think about, and it's because 18 is the smallest number that 6 goes into right here, and that 9 goes into. 18 is the smallest number that 6 and 9 will go into. So What am I going to multiply the top and bottom of this fraction by? That's correct. 3. 6 times 3 is 18. On the top, 4 times 3 is 12. So 4/6 is exactly the same amount as 12/18. Those fractions are equal to each other. If I had 6 and I had 4 of them laid out, and then I had slices that were 18ths, I'd have to put 12 of them over the top of the 4/6 in order for it to be the same amount. Then we need to change 2/9 into 18ths. So I've got to multiply the top and bottom by something. This time I want you to tell me, what is this number up here? What is that number on top? Think about it. What am I multiplying 9 by? Careful, Ashley. I've got to take 9 and multiply it by something to get 18. So think about what I'm multiplying 9 by to get 18. I have to multiply the top by that. We multiply by 2 over 2. 9 times 2 is 18, so 2 times 2 is 4. The numerator of that fraction is 4. So you got to look at, what do I have to multiply my starting fraction denominator by to get my ending fraction denominator. Okay, let's look at the next one. 8/9 and 2/3. 8/9 and 2/3. So we need to do the factors of 9. 9 times 1 is 9. 9 times 2 is 18. 9 times 3 is 27. 9 times 4 is 36. The factors of 3, multiples of 3, excuse me. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 3 is 9. I can stop right there. My least common denominator will be 9, because 9 is the smallest number that 9 goes into and that 3 goes into. So I have to change 8/9 into 9ths. Well, it's already 9ths. So I'm really just keeping that fraction the same. But 2/3 has to be turned into 9ths. What is this number up here on the top? Think about what I have to multiply 3 by. I have to multiply 2 by the same thing. So what do you think, Ashley? I've got to multiply 3 by something to get 9. I have to take 2 and multiply it by that same thing. 3 times what is 9? Do the same thing on the top. Yes. If I multiply the bottom by 3, 3 times 3 is 9, I would do the same thing on the top, and 2 times 3 is 6. So we changed 2/3 into 6/9. Sometimes the least common denominator will be one of the denominators. Not always, but sometimes it will be one of the denominators. Sometimes it's not. Usually, most of the time, it's not. Okay. Let's look at 4/5 and 7/10. 4/5 and 7/10. So we need to take 5 and find our multiples. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 3 is 15. 5 times 4 is 20. Our second fraction is 10. Oh, we can stop because 10 is our common multiple. It's our least common denominator. So I have to change 4/5 into tenths. What is this number up here on the top? Yes, because I multiply the bottom by 2 and I multiply the top by 2. Hey, Reginald, let me finish what we're doing and I'll send you this sheet, okay? So the top, 4 times 2 is 8. All right, so we changed 4/5 into 8/10. 7/10 we need to change into tenths. Well, it's already tenths, so we don't have to do anything to it. So our least common denominator for 4/5 and 7/10 was 10, and we changed 4/5 into 8/10, and 7/10 we just left alone. Okay, I want you to start the next one up here. Find the the multiples of 6 and the multiples of 4, and I'm going to send Reginald what y'all are working on. Okay, Reginald, I just sent that to you, so you should be getting it. All right. So, well, no, Reginald, I want you to stay along with us. So we're working on this problem here. So I want you to join in with this problem. So we're finding the multiples of 6. So I want you to list the multiples of 6 and tell me what they are in chat. Do the first 3 or 4. Multiples of 6. Well, Ty, then you're getting way ahead of me. That's so tell me in chat what are the multiples of 6? 6, 12, 18, 21. Y'all agree with that? I think you got that last one wrong, Ashley. 6 times 1. Good. Yeah, it should be 24. 6, 12, 18, 24. 6 times 4 is 24. So you're right. 6 and 12 and 18 and 24. All right, tell me what the multiples of 4 are. Do the first, well, do it until we can stop. Okay, 4, 8, 12, 16. Type in, you got 4, 8, 12. Reginald, what do you think the factors, the multiples, excuse me, not factors, multiples of 4 are? We're taking 4 times 1, 4 times 2, 4 times 3, 4 times 4. Correct. And yes, Tyvan, you can stop once you find one that matches. So 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12. We can stop right there. Our common denominator, our least common denominator is 12. So I have to change 4/6 into twelfths. What is the number on the top? Looking for this number up here on the top. Okay. And you are correct because we multiply the top and bottom by 2. 6 times 2 is 12, and 4 times 2 is 8. So, Reginald, are you seeing that? Seeing what we're doing? We're finding the multiples. We're finding out, once we find these multiples, once we find the list of multiples, then we look at, okay, what is the multiple that is common? And then we have to write our fraction, what we started with, into the new fraction. And so 3/4 is how many twelfths? Three-fourths is how many twelfths? Three-fourths is how many twelfths? Okay, look again, think about, we have to take 4 and multiply it by something to get 12. And whatever that is that we multiply the bottom by, we've got to do the same thing on the top. So actually, we're going to multiply by 3, but what does that give us as the number over 12? 9, right? Because 4 times 3 is 12, 3 times 3 is 9. Okay, let's look at the next one. 7/8 and 5/16. 7/8 and 5/16. So I want you to tell me what the least common denominator is. If you can just see it, then that's good. If you need to do the multiples, then that's fine. Reginald, what do you think? looking for the smallest number that 8 goes into and 16 goes into. And if you have to do it by looking at the multiples, 8 times 1, 8 times 2, 8 times 3, 8 times 4, 8 times 5. And then 16 times 1, 16 times 2, 16 times 3, until you get a multiple that is the same. So what you thinking, Reg? All right, well, let's do it. 8 times 1 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. I can stop there because our next number is 16. So our least common denominator is 16. Now we're not reducing anything yet. We're doing the reverse of reducing. We're finding an equivalent fraction, but one in which the denominators have a common denominator. So our least common denominator is 16. So we have to change 7/8 into 16ths. So what is our numerator? What is our numerator if we're changing 7/8 into 16ths? What is our numerator if we're changing our denominator into 16ths? So think about what we multiply 8 by to get 16. We have to multiply the top by the exact same thing. Reginald, we're not looking at the numbers that are inside of 16. We're looking now at what numbers do 8 and 16 go into. Well, 8 goes into 16 and 16 goes into 16. So we're not factoring numbers down now, we're building them up. Okay, and the correct answer is 14 because we have to multiply the top and bottom by 2. 8 times 2 is 16. 7 times 2 is 14. So we get 14/16. 7/8 is exactly the same thing as 14/16. Okay, yeah, okay. If that's, yeah, that's a way of thinking about it. What do we change 5/16 into? What do we change 5/16 into? All right, am I losing y'all? We're going to take a break here in a second. Well, Reginald, what we're trying to do is turn these two fractions into fractions that have the same denominator. And so we found out that that denominator that we have to change them into is 16ths. So 5/16 is already in 16ths. We don't have to change it into anything. We're taking and building the fractions back up or multiplying by something to get an equivalent fraction. All right, I am about to send some classwork to you. Where are you? Okay, I just sent some classwork, and let me show you what it looks like.
If you liked this video, please click the thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, please click the subscribe button. If you want to be notified about new videos, please click the notification button.